Darren. Welcome to the Everyday Heroes podcast by Kofkin Bond. Thank you for coming over for Adelaide.
Not a
I
problem.
don't think it was especially for us, but it's great to have you here.
It's always great to catch up in friends in Melbourne.
Very true. Now, I didn't ask you this off air because I wanted to act a bit surprised. Adelaide or Port Adelaide fan?
You're going to hate this.
Hmm?
Neither.
Thank God, I'm an Essendon supporter. I just saw Port Adelaide kill us on the weekend. So, yeah. It's okay. This is going to be a very friendly podcast then, which is wonderful. Who is your team?
I actually don't follow the AFL. I think it's an amazing sport, amazing athletes.
Yeah.
My sport was sailing.
Oh,
And
yes, that's right.
that's where I spent all my time and effort. And growing up in Sydney, sailing wasn't a big AFL wasn't a big sport up there. Sailing was. So I never really got into it.
That's wonderful. I was so scared to ask you that question, but now we're best
Got
of
the
friends.
important things out of the way.
Yeah, I must admit, besides getting up too early to watch the Australia win the America's Cup, 84, I think, 83 was it?
26th September.
Yeah.
Not that it's...
And Bob Hulk saying everyone could stay at home, and I was actually at athletics training at the time, thinking, does it mean we don't have to go to school? No, we still have to go to school.
My teacher bought in a cake for us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wasn't it a big thing?
That was huge.
Yeah, absolutely huge, and especially if you love sailing.
And 40 plus years later, we're still talking about it.
Well, the interesting part is I know nothing about sailing, but for me it was just such a big thing.
And if you don't remember what this is, you've got age on your side.
Yes,
You're
correct.
just simply too young.
Yes. I'm on the latter end of the 50s now, and it's really starting to hit home a bit. My knees hurt a little bit more. I don't bounce out of bed quite as easily, but I still give it a good go.
Good-o.
Yeah. So now let's talk about the work you do, and we can talk about what people would think is around mindset.
Yeah.
So we've had some in-depth conversations regarding things like meditation, etc., and putting from myself, and all my listeners have heard me say this, at least 275 times. I think that's what episode we're up to. So I'm a big proponent of meditation, been doing it for 15 years. And, sometimes it might not go the full length. Sometimes I might get a bit distracted. I'm certainly not a Zen monk by any doubt, but where that has put me in respect to my life and I've grown as an individual, I think has been wonderful. But we talk about, in your case here, I've got the word shifted from mindset to practical mindfulness. Explain that to us.
Yeah, meditation is one of the most powerful things you can do, but my journey with meditation is far from straightforward. I wanted to start meditating when I was about 19, 20, and the instructions I was given was sit there, calm my mind, and I couldn't do it. I would sit down, my body would want to move, I'd want to think of this, think of that, and I just couldn't meditate. And I just sat there and went, no, I can't meditate. Left it, went and studied a degree in psychology. I remember I was working at Westpac in the collections department, and I used to call people around, you haven't paid your credit card or you haven't paid your mortgage, and hey, what's going on? And what I found is, because I could see how much money people were putting into their bank, because I was at the bank, someone who's earning, say, 50 grand a year, or someone earning 500 grand a year, it didn't matter. They were still in collections. As Jim Rohn used to say, there's too much month at the end of the money. And what I realised at that time, it wasn't a money issue. It was actually a mindset issue. So I went off, got myself a degree in psychology to understand what was going on in the head. And then when the world stopped, COVID hit, I had the opportunity to stop and synthesise all my readings. And once again, meditation came through, and I went and investigated it more deeply. And the information that I was told, and potentially your listeners as well, of sitting down and trying to stop the mind is never going to happen. It's a fool's errand, so don't even try. And once I realised that, I've gone, oh, awesome. And that's where the whole idea of practical mindfulness comes from. Because guys like you and I, the 6 Australians males will kill themselves today. But that's terrible. And you don't do something like that. You don't do anything, literally anything, unless at first there's a thought or a cognition. And the cognitions are saying, end the game. We've got to do something to sort that out.
Yeah.
And what I worked out is the mindfulness if you strip away the woo-woo, if you strip away the incense, the oils, and the yoga pants, you're left with incredibly powerful mind control techniques.
Yeah, I don't look good in yoga pants.
No, neither do I.
So it's the active wear does not look good on me, and it would distract me way too much for be a bit too embarrassed to put that on.
No one needs to see certain things, and me in yoga pants is one of those things that's not going to be seen. So what I now do is I go around, I work with what I call the heavy industry, the educated blue collar, so your engineers, your site managers who go between head office and the site, managing multi-million-dollar, maybe billion-dollar projects, and how to keep the mind calm and clear so they don't lose their marbles at work and go nuts at people. So when they get home, they're the best version of themselves, and so they can sleep all night.
These are tough people working in tough industries.
Very.
Could this be perceived as a bit airy-fairy for them?
That's why I've stripped away all the incense and the oils and stuff. What I teach is a methodical process that if you follow step A, step B, and step C, you will achieve the outcome. And the clients that I work with, when someone turns around and says, "Oh, it's not working for me," I know it's because they're not doing it.
Yeah.
It's like chemistry. If you burn hydrogen and oxygen, you will get water. You don't have to believe it. It works whether you believe it or not. This process works whether someone believes it or not.
But also, too, it's consistency and time.
Yes.
And that's it doesn't matter what it is. If you consistently eat a Krispy Kreme donut every day, over time you'll most likely put on weight.
Yeah.
If you consistently eat 100 grams less per day, over time you'll consistently lose weight.
Yeah.
And I think, though, it's the same with the mind is, the being grateful for things. So as an example, one of the things that I've done as well is just journaled, where in that journal, it could be a paragraph, it could be 7 pages. It's whatever that comes out. And I usually do it after meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not an everyday thing for me, but nothing negative is ever allowed to go in that.
Right.
Yeah, and sometimes it's giving thanks for things. Sometimes it's just a thought process. Sometimes it's a case of, a thought that it might have come to me during the meditation where you say, you don't just have a blank mind and it's put that away. I'll just put that back on the shelf. It's relevant, put it back on the shelf, go back to what I was actually doing, but actually then journal it.
Yeah.
Just by writing it down, sometimes it's a case of, it might be something that I might raise with Shay later on as well. So just have this thought process. What do you think?
Yeah, I've started cheating. Well, I've now got a voice recorder.
Yeah.
So I sit there and I meditate for an hour every morning.
An hour,
and
wow.
then an hour every evening.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, your mind will wander. It'll go off to amazing things, and sometimes you'll get an amazing idea.
Yeah.
So I just turn the voice recorder on, record it, turn it off, and then I've got it. Probably takes me out of the depth of the meditation, but it's you're in there, you may as well take what you can get.
Sometimes people should be able to make a decision to learn something new, and then for that to become a habit, and a good habit, obviously, can take some convincing. Do you have to, so if you're engaged now by a company, you might have been engaged by the leadership team, the HR team, but you're engaged by a company. And how do you sit down and show people rather than say convince of the benefits of doing this on a daily basis and the outcomes that eventually that you achieve? So how are some of the things you address there?
Yeah. So the first of all, any step in I don't like the term, but self-improvement, everyone knows what it means. I don't like it, but any step on self-improvement must give you benefit from step one. Okay. If you have to meditate for 15 hours before you get one credit in a bank above the clouds that you can cash sometime in the future, no, who wants to do that? You meditate for 2 minutes now, you get 2 minutes of benefit. You meditate for an hour, you get an hour of benefit. So in my program, I actually step people through it. And what we find in the day is, so a classic example, I was working with Australia Post recently, and I put on the screen some things that trigger people. There was money, there was a spider, a politician, and something else. And the lady saw a spider and she, oh my goodness, get rid of that spider, I hate spiders. And that was known within her team that she hated spiders. I took her through the process of the day, and what we did, we went in and we deactivated the trigger. At the end of the day, I put the same slide back up with the spider on there, and she looked at it. And I gave her an invitation. Do you want to come up and touch the screen? It's not a real spider, it's just a picture of it. And she looked at it for a moment, probably 30 seconds, and went, no, I don't think I will. But within the space of a day, she could now look at a spider and consider, will I go touch it? Whereas earlier in the day, she had stopped, couldn't even look at it. This is what I mean by every step must give you an advantage. Every step must give you benefit.
How do you, and I'm sure there's several ways that you can do depending on the person as well, but how do you deactivate a trigger?
So the question becomes, how do you know you don't like that trigger? So you have a fear, let's say you've got a fear of spiders. Pick another.
Not a fan.
You're not a fan of them. So my question to you is, how do you know you...
Actually, I'm going to go back on that. I just said I'm not a fan.
Mm-hmm.
Historically, yes, I had a fear of spiders.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm now in a situation where if there is a spider, it is my job to get rid of that spider.
Suck it up.
Yeah, so it was originally my father's job to get rid of the spider. So I could just have the fear and never have to worry. Look, Dad, there's a huntsman out up there. So it's and he would just go and the huntsman pick it up by hand.
Yeah, well,
others who wouldn't.
I'm not a fan of spiders, but I'm not at that stage.
No, but at the same time though, I think for me it was a case of, well, this is a job that
the dad does.
Yes, that's right. That I've actually been given. So as I said, still not a fan.
So my question
from a distance.
How do you know you're not a fan?
I would prefer there to not be spiders or jellyfish at all.
That's an outcome. That's an outcome.
Yeah, that's correct.
But how do you know you're not a fan?
I don't.
Well, then how do you know which way to operate?
Mm-hmm.
So you see a spider there, you look at the spider and you know you're not a fan.
Yeah.
How do you know you're not a fan?
I actually haven't thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's I think it was just inherently that's not my job.
I
don't like them.
It was taught to you.
Yeah, that's correct.
But you've been taught lots of stuff.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't affect you.
Yeah.
So there's something. So if we look back to Pavlov, stimulus response.
Yes.
That's not the whole equation. There's stimulus, sensation, and response.
So I've never been bitten by a spider.
Neither have I.
No, I've never
had.
No, absolutely. Never had a negative outcome from seeing a spider.
My friend Pollyanna, she lives just down in Brighton.
Yeah.
And she loves jumping out of aeroplanes. Like mad as a cut snake. Mm-hmm. She's done over 1,000 jumps, competed in world championships, etc.
She loves jumping out.
She loves me. Yeah, no. I like sitting in them.
Yeah.
So if we were standing up on the top of an aircraft, on the side of an aircraft, about to jump out, and she's standing there looking out at the scenery, ready to jump out, and I'm sitting there looking out at the scenery, ready to pass out, it's clearly not the scenery, is it? It's not the environment. It's got to be something else. And what that something else is a sensation inside the body. If that sensation is not there, you don't have that reaction.
Does that come down to the fight or flight sensation that we sometimes have as well?
It is all linked together, but we can separate this out. So another way to look at it, are you a dog lover?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. How do you know you love your dog?
Well, I haven't got one at the moment, but I was very sad when they passed away.
Yeah. So how do you know you were sad?
That feeling.
That feeling, yeah. So you look at your dog or a new dog or memories of your dog.
Yeah.
You know you love it by a feeling in the body.
Yes.
If you look at that dog and it's still alive and you don't feel that sensation, would you still love the dog?
Very good question.
You wouldn't hate it.
No, I wouldn't hate the dog. I wouldn't necessarily ignore the dog. I did always love the fact that when I came home, that dog wanted to tell me everything about its day. Probably just slept all day. I did nothing. And it was so happy to see me. I might have just been gone for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it didn't just look up when I walked into the door. It was so happy to see me. It was so happy to get a pat and attention. And
that gave you a sensation inside your body.
It made you feel good.
Yeah. So if that sensation is not there, what would your relationship to the dog be?
Yes, I also had a cat which was not as
Let's come back to the
affectionate towards
question.
me. Yeah, no. So, but I was thinking, I still love the cat,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well. But yeah, so how would I know? It's
The question is, if you looked at the dog and you didn't have that sensation, would you still love the dog?
absolutely, because my job was to care for that
How
dog
do you know you love the dog?
because I cared for that dog.
Well, you can care for things you don't love.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so you love the dog. You know you love the dog because you have a sensation.
Yeah.
If the sensation is not there, you wouldn't love the dog.
Yes.
You would still care for the dog.
Yes,
You'd still
yeah.
leave it at bed and you'd look after it, take for a walk, but you wouldn't love it.
Mm.
Would you agree with that?
Yes.
It's not actually the dog you love. It's the sensation inside you triggered by the dog that you love. And when we start working with the sensations, we can change everything. If you're in a workplace and the culture is not good, or people think there's too much workload, there's not. That workload, be it high or be it low, is triggering something in the individual, and that triggering is causing the reaction. And if we work with the workload, we're not going to change the reaction because the sensation is still there. That's what I work with.
So is this then, and using that example, you might have somebody who seems to be far more efficient than other people, and their work is excellent, but at the same time, they could actually be feeling frustrated because they seem to be doing more than other people.
Yeah. So why someone is efficient, there could be a whole bunch of reasons for that. They at a broader sense, they are not being distracted by sensations. So why is that? Maybe they're a Zen monk and they've learned how to not be. Maybe they've completely suppressed it and are dead on the inside. Could be a whole bunch of reasons. One way is more adaptive, another way is maladaptive.
Do you find people, and I suppose sort of our generation, we might be looking at younger people and say they're not as resilient anymore as what we were, and I'm sure our parents might have said that about us as well, and their parents about them. Is it? I made a comment the other day that if the worst thing that has happened to you is you got a flat tire on your bike and that was the most traumatic experience you've ever had in your life, and that's how you just fell on the floor and couldn't cope with life anymore because of that, whereas other people have gone through war, and come out the other end, and they would have their own issues and things like that as well. Is it a case of sometimes for us to be that little bit more resilient, it is mindset, but is it also through experience?
So, and this is the reason I changed from...
I'll add one more thing to that, Darren, if I can. We might not remember the words that somebody said to us, but we can remember the feelings of how they made us feel.
Back
and
to
that could have been
sensation.
10 years earlier. Yeah.
Back to sensation. Everything is sensation.
Yeah.
So the reason I moved away from mindset to mindfulness is because of the sensation. So if you talk about mindset, you look at Carol Dweck's work, and if you pull her work apart, there's a lack of internal consistency. That's a big call to make about a professor. So she says you've either got a growth mindset or a fixed mindset, and everyone will say, yes, I've got a growth mindset. And if you find that person who says, no, I've got a fixed mindset, to get to a growth mindset, she says you need to use techniques that are from a growth mindset, which doesn't make any sense, because if you've got a fixed mindset, you can't use those techniques. So it sort of doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So I didn't like, and then you get into the book Grit, in which is all about just pushing through, and like we all know how grit works. Put grit in anywhere and it eventually wears you down. That's no good. So that's why I moved towards mindfulness, because in essence, what mindfulness is awareness. Are you simply aware of what's going on? And most people, most of the time, are not. So talking to you now, or the person listening to this with their AirPods in, you can't feel your bum on the seat.
Yeah.
But now that I've mentioned it, you can. Absolutely. The person listening can't feel their AirPods until I've now mentioned it. But now that I'm talking about the AirPods, you've forgotten about your bum. You also can't feel the shoes on your feet. Why? Because you're simply not aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
The way this plays out, every word causes a physical sensation inside us. It's easy to spot the big ones: love, anger, fear, pride, jealousy, frustration. They're easy to come across. But there's no line where it says above this, you'll feel sensations, below this, you won't. They happen for everything. So someone doing something, someone saying something, you having a thought will cause a sensation inside your body. And that sensation is what we react to. Not the thought, not the person over there. We react to the sensation. And unless you have awareness of that sensation, you're not going to be aware of what's causing it.
Yeah.
So this is why I like the term mindfulness is more correct. I don't like the term mindfulness because of all the woo-woo that sits around it. But that's what it is. It's about awareness. That's how we get people to change very quickly. So back to the lady at Australia Post who saw the spider, I just took her through a process of paying attention to the sensation. The sensation deactivated, and then she was able to look at it. Why? Because the sensation had gone. It wasn't the spider that scared her. It was the sensation triggered that did.
So it's seeing an individual on the street who you came across 10 years ago who physically assaulted you. You remember the feeling. You remember how you feel about them. You remember the anger. You remember the sadness. You remember the not understanding. You don't necessarily remember what they said. So it's interesting because that can be the same in the workplace.
Oh yeah,
which
absolutely.
is whereas you might say something as a manager or as an owner of the business, and one person finds it quite motivating, the other person can find it quite triggering. But they've both heard the exact same thing at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I suppose that's also the same with politics nowadays. And
yes, and football.
Football, absolutely. It's all very tribal.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
So all very tribal. So from that perspective, if you're a head of an organisation that has 500 team members and you've got, you have HR departments nowadays or people and culture departments who are saying, Tony, you're not allowed to say that, stop being a Gen Xer. I've always said us Gen Xers, we tend to offend our parents and our children.
And anyone else listening.
Exactly. So it's there's certain things that are meant to stay in your head and not actually come out of your mouth at times. So, but when you are dealing with different generations who have been raised by different people, or I've often said, my sister and I have completely different views, love each other dearly, completely different views in so many different aspects of life, raised by the exact same parents in the exact same household.
But not the exact same environment.
Why is that? Because of the 3.5-year age gap?
Well, who's older?
I am.
Okay, so your sister had a big brother and who looked after her for the first 10 years of her life, in her mind.
Yeah.
Like, you don't listen to mum and dad, you listen to the big brother. So this is where sibling studies get it wrong.
Yeah.
They're different worlds. I remember when my second daughter came along, my eldest daughter, Alice, she was about 18, 19 months older. And then she just doted all over that little kid. It was just so great. Alice didn't have that. Completely different environment, same parents.
Yes, yeah. That's actually really interesting because it was the same with my boys who are just over 2 years apart. Now they're both 29, 27 this week actually. So it's so they're grown men now. But Josh, my oldest, he doted over his little brother.
Yeah.
Absolutely did. And it was interesting because they do have very different personalities, the two of them. Best of friends still, but two very different personalities. My sister and I, though, as much as we were always really, really good friends, I love her to death and would do anything for her, it was actually interesting because there was a 3.5-year age gap, which was that slightly more, say, than my children, nearly double. But on top of that as well, being different sexes in a time where, there could be classed as, I was born 69, so she was 72. So there was still that sexual discrimination with the fact that we had the toughest Irish mother of all times. And there is no such thing as, a woman can't do anything as well. It's a very, very strong woman. So there was, and my father was the soft, beautiful, loving, compassionate one. So I had to applaud them. But it was there was no such thing as this is the male's role and this is the female's role. You just get it done.
Yeah, well, that's
and you didn't get asked twice.
Yeah, because society wasn't like that back then.
No, but as a result of that, my sister is very strong-willed as well because she grew up with a strong mother, and me growing up with a strong mother meant you were taught how to treat treat a woman, you know, with respect, and especially my father, who was, you know, if you're talking about a gentleman, his picture would be in the dictionary.
Yeah, right.
Yes, a really true gentleman. He always said to me, if you're going to wear a tie, you wear it properly.
I noticed it was a winter night.
Yes. So he always said that you never have that top button undone. You either wear a tie or don't wear a tie.
Yeah.
He's doing it properly. That was the English gentleman in him.
Yeah, right.
So from that perspective, you are now the leader of an organisation. You've got 400 people working for you. You've got completely different generations, people in different roles, people raised in different households in different ways, having different religions, having different, some people might call themselves a Catholic but not actually live that lifestyle. Other ones could be very staunch, you know, in respect to their beliefs. How, as a leader, do you work with that and be flexible enough, or does this then come back to that being at peace with who you are, or you teaching somebody to be at peace with who they are to be able to help?
Yeah. It all comes down to stimulus, sensation, response. So if we look at, so if you say something and I'm offended, that's my problem, not yours.
Yeah.
Now I get that if you take that to the extreme, you end up agreeing with George Brandis, which I don't like to do, which is everyone has the right to be a bigot. Yes, that's true, but like...
You can have manners too.
Yeah, you can have manners too. So the question becomes, that person is offended. So what were they offended by? Were they offended by what was said, what they felt, or the outcome? So we can test this. We've got 3 people. You say something, I find it offensive, Shay finds it funny, and someone else says, that's just dumb, move on. So where did the offence occur? Did it occur at your lips? Well, no, because we all heard the same thing and it was different. Did it occur between your lips and my ear? Well, no, because it wasn't interfered with. So the offence had to be occurring within me. So now I do not say you should go around saying things to offend people, but we now know where the offence has taken place. The offence has taken place internally, okay? This is such a wonderful thing to do, to know, because what that means is we actually have a way to address the situation without saying you must be different. Stimulus, I heard something, the sensation was created, and the response is I'm offended. In the same way that we help a lady overcome her fear of a spider by deactivating it, we can do the same with those words, those people, that football team supporter.
There's a few of them. Actually, probably the most feral football team supporters at the moment are my team supporters, because we're not doing too well. So that's it. But is there then we live, and I can't remember it being like this, and maybe I was just, you're at school and you're just playing sport and having lunch and doing whatever you feel like doing, realistically. The only part of school I didn't like is I actually apparently had to study every so often. The socialisation of sport was magnificent. But from that perspective, we now live in a culture, and whether it's perpetrated through social media or in other ways, where it seems to be that I'm offended by what you said and I'm now going to have you cancelled.
Yeah.
Now, commonly known as the cancel culture, and it happens on both sides.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But it can be so horrible and feral, and just but they can now get a tribe together to get you out there.
That is all true. But if we take this small thing and then understand that it multiplies out, a friend, very clever guy, said to me once, cancel culture only affects people who care. Like Donald Trump, like classic example. The Supreme Court will say something, he doesn't care, and he'll just go and do what he wants to. So he's not bound by it. You're only bound by the people you give authority to. So if that group over there cancels me, I don't want to be cancelled, but it's only a problem if I want their attention. Or
what happens though if it's just untrue? Or it affects your business as a result of somebody saying something which is malicious and untrue. And has their tribe on board with you to go out there and get you.
Yeah, I get that.
Which is something that social media has perpetrated now, because it can just go like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to take a macro view on something like this. The world never happens to you. It happens for you and with you. If you've ever read the book by Michael Singer, The Untethered Soul, The Surrender Experiment, he's written 2 books. The Surrender Experiment's his biography. And what it talks about is how he decided as a 25-year-old hippie or something, this is the 1960s, that he was just going to meditate every day. And he somehow got a plot of land that he meditated in that spot, and he built literally a multi-billion-dollar company meditating from that spot. His work is included in the Smithsonian Institution. He made buckets of money through the dot-com boom and survived it. And what happened is partway through that process, he was taken for fraud and the FBI raided him. And what he said is, and this is the macro view of it and the idea that the world happens for you and with you, never to you. He just said, I'm going to lean into this and surrender to it, and do his meditation. And what happens is, and this is part of what I sort of teach, is it allows the programming to be undone. And what happened is, he went through the ringer. It was no fun, but he came out the other side of it completely clean and exonerated. Why? Because the world happens for you and with you, never to you. So he didn't try and fight it. He got all the best lawyers he could afford it, and he did all that he could, but he went through the process and used it as a learning experience. My divorce, when my wife said that it was the marriage had done its time, I thought it was the worst thing that ever happened. Now, looking back, I go, thankfully she had the courage and the conviction and the foresight to realise that neither of us were happy and to move forward. But at the time, I thought it was terrible. Eventually, I leant into it and accepted it, and so glad I did.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it, where frequently in my life, and it's something that I kind of live by now, that I've found that when something doesn't proceed that you're wanting to proceed and working towards a proceeding, whether it be a marriage or a friendship or a business, something potentially in your business, whether it be a merger or whatever the case may be, for the benefit of time, it seems to have actually happened for a really good reason in the end. So life hasn't fallen to pieces.
So you, taking this example, you wanted to merge that business and that business, and you're pushing hard. Who are you to say that those 2 entities are ready as business entities to merge yet? Like, why are you forcing your will on it? This is falls on the book, the Tao Te Ching, Chinese philosophy from about 5,000 years ago. Be like the river, just flow. You meet resistance, overcome it with time. Don't force. And you find things happen a lot better. Example of this. It's difficult. Why?
I used to, but now I do have the ability to just be able to move on.
So how this has showed up for me, I plan to go back to study at Oxford in July, August, and all late last year, I was like, yep, the course is open, I want it. And the internal voice saying, no, don't, just don't go. And no, I got to, because the course will sell out. So I put the money in, and I didn't want to book the flights, but I'll book the flights. And now Trump's bombing Iran, and Iran's bombing Qatar, and I'm booked on Qatar Airlines, so my flight's not going to make it. Maybe if I had have not fought the process, it wouldn't be an issue I have to now deal with.
Yeah, very true. It is interesting, benefit of hindsight. And I was at the Modern Day Wisdom Chris Williamson podcast on Friday night. And he has some pearls of wisdom, but it was interesting that it was one of the things he actually asked was, who in the audience, an audience of 3,000 people there, got to meet him afterwards, really lovely guy, really lovely gentleman, the persona that we all see anyway, and seemed really genuine. But he asked, one of the questions he asked is, who in the audience has received help, say psychological help, or gone and seen a counsellor? And a lot of people, well, at least were around me, including my hand, went up when he sought help. And he said, so you've seen a psychologist, and what seems to be the root of everything that's gone wrong in your life? and virtually everyone's your parents. So I have this phobia, this fear, this trauma because of the way I was raised. And we're talking about, a 25-year-old in front of me writing copious amounts of notes to an old fella like me, so it's who just seems to, be that Gen X with no filter, really trying hard to have a filter.
Yeah.
But it was actually quite interesting too, because he said, have you actually thought that the person you are today and the successes you've also had in life has actually been due to what you say your parents have put you through, but as a result now you are unbelievably disciplined in everything you do.
Yeah.
You've actually achieved greatness because you've learned not to accept that.
Yeah.
So he actually flipped it, and I thought it was really good the way he actually flipped it, because we will say it was my mum's fault, definitely.
Yeah. So bring it back to a football analogy, and this is the guy who doesn't follow much football, but I do remember when Port Adelaide, Mark Williams was the coach.
Yes.
He won, and he stood up and he said, "Somebody, you were wrong." The main sponsor. I'm not sure I would do that. But what happened?
He actually held his tie up.
Yeah,
and
he
said,
held
"Look,
his
we
tie
didn't
up.
choke."
Yeah. And my understanding could be completely wrong, but apparently a few years earlier, that person had said, "You'll never win under Mark Williams." And Mark went, "Well, I'll prove you wrong, buddy." Why would you hate him?
Mm.
He's the person who knew what to say to light the fire so you could achieve your goal. Like, you should be going back and thanking that guy and worshipping him because he knew how to get you going. But unfortunately, we look at the downside of it.
We do. It's interesting because a term which I've heard over the past few years is defiance disorder. And I thought, that's a very interesting term. And then you look into it and I thought, that's exactly what my dad did to me. I bet you can't do that, son. I'll show you. So it's and that was his way of motivating you into action, was I'll prove you wrong. And you look back once again for the benefit of hindsight, and I just think, what an amazing man. He would be up at 4:30 every morning to take me swimming training.
Yeah, right.
I'm sure he would have loved me doing the sport where it was lunchtime training.
That's why I did sailing, because wind didn't blow until afternoon.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm sure Dad, for the first 18 years of my life, would have loved to have extra snooze when I was sleeping. But it is interesting because the things that you do as a parent. So Dad's been gone 10 years, well, nearly 10 years now. I still don't have a bad memory of him. Not one. I do. Well, that's probably a bit of a fib, because he's probably had the worst dad jokes of all time. So that's about the only dad.
If that's the worst, you've got to deal with.
Absolutely. But it's interesting though, because you then see, when you can actually go back, as a bit older and a bit wiser and have made a few mistakes in my life, you can actually go back and say, yeah, this is where it's really gone well for me because of what Mum and Dad have taught me. Mum being the disciplinarian and not asking twice, and me, no, she doesn't ask twice. I'll test the boundaries.
Yeah.
And she proved every single time she would not ask twice.
And you got the chip over the ear to prove it.
Yeah, I'll continually test those boundaries.
What's the saying? Parents will screw up their children.
Yes.
It's the children's duty, when they are a parent, when they screw their children up, to screw them up in a different way.
Yes.
There's got to be some sort of intergenerational learning.
Yes, but I do see attributes in my sons that I can say, oh, yeah, I don't like you doing that, but that was me at your age. Yeah, so it's just like,
you get to the point
maybe I haven't screwed you up properly.
You get to the point where you turn around, and my brother's got 4 sons and I'm one of 3 sons and a younger sister. And when my brother's kids were under 10 or something like that, he went, yeah, I got to go apologise to Mum. Just knowing what kids get up to.
It's... You look back, and I catch up with my mum weekly now. So she's 86, and she's got frail. For a very strong, tough woman, she's frail now, and beautiful person. Doesn't mince her words. She'll still say it how she sees it. But it's actually really interesting, because we actually had a real deep heart-to-heart, not planning to, for no particular reason, just one of our Saturday lunch dates. And I actually said to her, Mum, considering that I now know as an adult your history as a child. So my mum's mum died giving birth to her. My father was an orphan after World War II. How lucky am I to have these two amazingly loving parents? Statistically, if you have a look, they should have been the worst parents on earth.
Yeah, yeah.
So they certainly didn't have any guidance from adult figures in any way. Dad said his experience in the orphanage was good, but I also could see Dad as that person who just blended into the wallpaper and no one noticed him.
Yeah.
And that was how he stayed safe. Whereas my mum would come out blazing.
Yeah.
So that's the Irish in her. So she would just come out all guns blazing.
Peaky Blinders.
Oh, very much so. She hasn't blown up anything yet, but I'm sure she's wanted to. So it's but I think though you do look at that, and I just think, how privileged am I? Because there was one rule my mum had when they were discussing having children, and they tried for 6 years before I came and decided to come along finally. But it was a case of, if we have children, they'll have an education. That was her only rule. No matter what, they will have an education. And then she always said, the rest is up to you. So it's interesting that they could have turned out differently. They could have, neither of them were drinkers. They had fun life. Mum was, she would always say, anyone is allowed in my household. Didn't care about their sexual orientation, the colour of their skin, their religion, or what accent they have, or where they were born. If you're a good person, you're allowed in the house. If you weren't, she'd be one throwing you out and she'd let you know.
Yeah.
Yes, and that included my friends as well. Caught up with a couple of lifelong friends for lunch yesterday, and it was interesting how they both spoke so glowingly about my parents. And I'm thinking, my parents? So your mum was just so wonderful. And I said, Mark, you do know my mum used to swear at you for not tidying up after we had breakfast together. And he goes, I know. And as a result, I know how to tidy up because I don't want Julie swearing at me. So it was interesting to know that you do have those thought processes, those patterns. But once again, let's bring this back to the workplace. And in bringing this back to the workplace, I know there were certain attributes that I had to change. And one of the things that came out in Anonymous 360, questions that were asked about all of us, and we all answered about all of our team members at the time, was one of the things that came back to me, which I won't use the word offended, but sort of emotionally that feeling got to me. Was, and I know who wrote it, because
you let their ties down.
No, I didn't let their ties down. But it was, he meant it in such, and he's a great person. He's just gone on a nice long holiday again. Actually, he's gone on a holiday. He hasn't been holidayed. So it's we're hoping he comes back from holidays, because he's riding his bike around every country that ends in STAN at the moment. It's just like missiles flying everywhere. And so Vaughan, if you're listening, we would love you back. So it's safe and sound. But the thing is that he said, when I first started here, Tony always had time where he could teach and mentor. Now I'm lucky I can't get 3 minutes with him. And when I got that feedback, the comment I made was, I know I can ring him at 10:30 at night when I'm driving home, because I'm currently doing 100-hour weeks. So I put the blame on everything else except listening to that feedback. And it was great constructive feedback. And that was one of the triggers for me to actually make the changes that had to be made in my personal life, in my business life, in a whole range of other things, in my relationship with friends, with my relationships that I shouldn't have had with certain people that I parted ways with as well. So just friendships that weren't working. But it was that feedback that really hurt, really.
That's because it hits you, because it hits. I would suggest, I don't know, I'm not your psychologist, it's hit part of the way you define yourself, one of the ideals you have, and it wasn't able to pass through that. And
it hurt.
Yeah.
I used to take pride in that.
Yeah.
And to think that I didn't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And then I also thought, there are other really amazing young people that work here that I have not been able to put the time into because I was under the pump. One of the things you put down here is doing less to achieve more. It's, when leaders present physically but mentally are checked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was here physically, but I was mentally checked out.
Well, how often have you read an email, you got to the bottom of it, and you're going, I don't remember a word of that? That's the biggest productivity killer in any organisation. Like, if you want to lift productivity in your team, in your organisation, don't go buy a new software or ERP or latest. Just teach the people who are working there to actually pay attention. What's the line? I don't know whether it's true, but Henry Ford was giving someone a tour around the plant, and the reporter asked, "How many people work here?" And he spat back, "About half of them." And I reckon it's still true today. We are so distracted. The idea of, you get rid of your phone. So you put your phone in the bottom drawer and you're trying to work away, but where's your mind?
Yeah,
on the phone.
As the phone rang.
As the phone rang. Have I missed an update? So, yeah, you got rid of the phone, but you're still distracted by it. So how do you know you're distracted by it? Well, the phone's not there. How do you know you're distracted? You have a desire to check it. How does that desire turn up? Well, it's a sensation, isn't it?
Yeah.
So then you respond to that sensation by checking it. You can put the phone on the other side of the room. Okay, so what you're going to do is sit down and work, and then you're still going to have the sensation to check it. So you're going to go up and walk across the room. You're going to waste even more time. The phone is not the problem.
Yes.
The sensation inside your body is the problem.
Yeah.
When you get to working with that, you fix all the problems really quick.
So there's these little things. Speaking about my 100-hour weeks and everything that I was going through and blaming the rest of the world for when I was allowing it to happen. And a simple thing was during that period of time, and I know it happened, I was an emotional eater.
Mm-hmm.
And it was more the quantities of food, having the odd sneaky chocolate was okay. Having the large chocolate bar every night on the way home,
Yes.
because it was my dopamine rush and something to look forward to.
It was a reward.
Yeah, and just a reward that I would then feel guilty about and hide the wrapper. From who?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say anyone knew that I ate it in my waistline as well. So it's but every day I was doing it. But a simple thing that I had to do to change that mindset, because there's if you try and change the world at once, it's really hard. Or what's the saying I once heard? Try and eat an elephant in one sitting, and it's a lot more difficult than eating it over the space of 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's so making
sure,
a little.
It gets a bit rotten, but it's still
That's right. So that's exactly right. Cook it and freeze it. So it's but the one of the things that actually came from it was I was mentioning it to actually a friend of mine, and he said, "Drive home a different way." Because I said, I always go to the same 7-Eleven on the corner of Johnson Street, and it's like my car just automatically goes straight in there.
Yeah.
And I pick up my Toblerone bar, and then it was a Toblerone bar and a wagon wheel.
Yeah, and then a Mars bar.
Correct,
and then washed in with a can of Coke.
Pretty much, yes. So, but I felt so guilty it'd be Coke Zero. But it was, but I think the thing was, though, is he said, "We'll drive home a different way."
Yeah,
and it was
that works.
And it did for me. But I was conscious now of driving home a different way because I didn't want this. I was still thinking about that chocolate bar and then started thinking about it less. Then all of a sudden I just had a different way to drive home, which actually ended up being a quicker way home anyway. And not because I was doing a stop off on the way.
Yeah. So if you're not stopping, you're going to get there quickly. I come back to the idea of, well, that is actually putting scaffolding around. It puts a cage around you. I don't believe in discipline.
Yes.
Discipline is a cage that keeps freedom at bay. That printed on the back of my gym T-shirt. The good thing is no one...
I'm pretty proud of myself now as I don't wear a T-shirt.
The thing is no one argues with a 6-foot skinhead at the gym. So
yeah, fair enough.
So why do we have discipline? We have discipline to ensure that we don't do the things we do want to do or do the things we don't want to do. Why? You have discipline to make sure you're miserable. Geez, that's a bit bloody ordinary. So when you're sitting there going, "Oh, Darren, how am I going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to the gym?" I would suggest you choose. So why do you know you need discipline? If you don't have discipline, you won't get out of bed. Well, how do you know you're not going to get out of bed? How would that show up? I'm asking, how would that show up?
Well, it's actually for me personally.
Yeah, well,
I can
speaking
tell you
generically.
exactly how to do that. A good friend of mine, so I now have a saying which I actually got off these guys because on every phone in here they put a sticker that just said WWTD, and it stood for what would Tony do. So don't come and ask him what would actually Tony do in this situation. So and I changed it to WWKD. Now, this friend of mine, she is very much into her fitness. She's up at 4:45 every morning. And it was, so between that, another friend of mine, Kate, as well, so who owns Be Fit Food. So I knew I was going home living by myself as a bachelor and just grazing all night. So I didn't have anything except my frozen meals in the freezer now, and that's the only thing I could eat for dinner, so rather than grazing all night. So making those little changes. But to go back to your question, my thing when the alarm went off now at 4:55 rather than 5, I wanted to be in the 4 mark. So just this little thing was when I didn't feel like getting out of bed, which usually because I hadn't gone to bed at the right time the night before.
Okay, so now we're getting to how do you know you don't want to get out of bed?
Because I was tired, I was exhausted.
Tired. So how do you know you're tired, exhausted?
Because
You
I'm just
feel it.
correct. You're
It's
not
a sensation.
correct.
So it's actually not the getting up that's the problem. It's the sensation that's the problem.
Yes.
So instead of having so what we do is we have discipline to deal with the sensations.
Yes.
Okay. And this is why willpower fails.
Yeah.
So just drive past that servo. Don't
I'm
pull in.
not Jocko Wilkes.
Yeah, and you-
oh,
and-
you
and
Wilkes.
you'll-
So yeah.
And
Yeah.
you'll be disciplined on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Monday's fine. Tuesday is pretty good. Wednesday is a bit struggling. Thursday, a little wobble. And Friday, bugger it on, pulling in, buying all the chocolates. Because discipline is a cognitive faculty that is about suppressing the sensations in the body. And when fatigue kicks in, what you're doing is this scaffolding that is suppressing the actions of not going to the servo or the scaffolding the action of getting out of bed. When fatigue kicks in, that willpower is not there, you revert to the actions, either sleeping in or getting the chocolate. So discipline is a cage that keeps freedom at bay. If you are relying on discipline to do something, discipline is about removing choice. And if you don't have choice, you don't have freedom. If you don't have freedom, you're in a cage.
Yeah.
So instead of focusing on what am I going to do, let's focus on just get rid of what stops you from getting up.
Yeah.
And it's the sensation.
Yeah.
So I get up every morning. I meditate for an hour. It's one of my. I was
You
listening
set
to.
the alarm, or
No,
you
like
just
you, I get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom,
Yes.
and if 2 minutes later I'm still awake, or I feel like it. So I meditate every morning for 1 hour without fail, no excuses, unless I don't want to. And if I don't want to, I don't have to, because I'm a choice. And what I find is the mornings that I decide, no, actually I don't want to get up, because I just let the sensation pass, 5 minutes later I'll normally get up, or I'll go back to sleep, and then I'll meditate sometime later in the day.
Yeah.
But it's not a discipline.
Yeah.
It's a choice.
Yeah.
And when you live at choice, you don't have as many stresses as I have to do something, because you're constantly fighting. If there's a sensation in your body and you are using discipline to deal with that, you're literally driving with your foot on the accelerator and brake at the same time.
Does it also depend on how much you want the outcome, which I didn't qualify for, but at the end of the day, it actually has provided me so many other things in life, about actually But so I'll touch on that.
Yep.
So I'm not going to give that story. People have heard it before,
Right.
but I'll touch on that. So, Darren, when you actually wanting, you spoke about discipline there, or wanting to do something that you actually desire and want to do. Sometimes is it a case of that you want the outcome of what that consistent approach to doing something will give you, that sometimes that is the desire to get out of bed at 5 a.m. to do it, because if you consistently do this, you're going to have that outcome of feeling better. Or, for example, I do go to the gym every morning, but I have it in my garage, because I found that when it wasn't in my garage, I didn't attend half the time.
Yeah.
But it's in my garage, nice and convenient. I've got a great gym set up actually in the garage. So from that perspective, but it gave me, I know that the endorphin rush that I get from doing that is wonderful. Now, there's obviously other physical sides of it too, which are also really nice as well. But it's actually the feeling that I get after my breathwork, my meditation, and that every morning, that actually just gives me that sensation of why I don't crash at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. I actually feel good at 3 p.m.
Yeah.
So is it sometimes the outcome, which is...
absolutely.
The gym is not for me looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No.
But
So the guy who or lady who goes to the gym every day because they want the outcome,
yeah,
and they stand there and I wish I had one of those bodies. They're not disciplined.
yeah,
Because discipline is a cage that you put around. So you find the problem is getting them out of the gym.
yes,
Okay. I'm not saying there's anything wrong or bad, but it's not discipline. They're going through choice, which is where you want to be, which is why they keep going. So you're in chasing the endorphins or the feel good. Well, how do you know you're experiencing the endorphins? How do you know you feel good? It's a sensation.
Is it also a case then when people who are, those high achievers, those alpha male, female leaders that we have in the world, or just in general, is it a case of that people can, or those with those type of personalities, they can be so goal driven that they even forget why they're just doing it, and everything else can fall around and fall to pieces. Their marriages can fall around. Kids hate them. Kids don't even remember their dad's name. They're away 3 weeks a month, etc. There's dysfunction in the family, and dad can't understand why because they've been so focused on a goal or an outcome.
It's a lack of awareness.
Yeah. So is it a case of that they're so focused on that, and they don't celebrate their successes? I found a lot as well.
Yeah. So if you read Andre Agassi's book, Open, he talks about the pain of losing lasts longer than the joy of winning. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people who chase a goal. They get there, right, what's next? No one is motivated by a goal. Okay. No one is motivated. You can't be motivated by something external to you.
Yeah.
Why? Because everything is sensation inside the body. When you think of achieving an outcome, what happens? You get a sensation. Oh, that'd be really good. Yes. I want that feeling. So you move towards that feeling. If you think of the same outcome and you don't get that sensation, it doesn't happen. Example of this was the end of my sailing career. I represented Australia half a dozen times, world championships, blah, blah, blah. Really cool fun, lots of fun. Just the thought of going sailing was, I just can't wait. I got to the point, though, at the end of my career that the last time we're out sailing, just on a Wednesday afternoon, we had an equipment failure. I think the rudder broke. And I just went, no, that's the end of it. And I have not been back to the sailing club once. I don't even think of the sport. When I do think of the sport, there is no sensation inside the body. Now, that chapter of my life is closed. I used to spend every waking moment, every single dollar was on sailing.
Yeah.
And now I think of it, I don't have that same sensation, so it doesn't get my attention.
Yeah, it was interesting that I had a triathlon coach. I did triathlons at quite an elite level there for a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember talking about getting these new wheels for the bike, which, how does he think I could get sponsorship? He said, no, not for those wheels. They're like, this would have been the early 90s, and they would have been about $4,000 for the set. So it's quite a lot of money back then. Quite a lot of money now. Yeah, quite a lot of money now, never mind back then. And I said, but they're like, 600 grams lighter. And he said, just eat less Mars bars. And I thought, that actually makes real sense, but I love Mars bars. so there was no power bars or protein
Not back
bars.
then,
No.
no.
It was just sugar.
Straight
just
sugar
bombs.
Yeah.
There's nothing like a Mars bar and a can of Coke to keep you going for 4 hours.
That's how I got through year 12.
Pretty much so. And then it became more sophisticated. It became Red Bull.
Yeah.
But I think, though, it's interesting that his perception was, don't worry about the wheels, to save yourself some weight. Just don't go out and have a sneaky Mars bar. Because that's about the same equivalent.
Yeah.
So
why did you want the wheels? Because you felt good about them.
Correct.
The sensation. Everything comes back to via sensations.
Yeah. And you know what? I might have put those wheels on, had a placebo effect for the first time I rode on them.
Yep.
But eventually it was still just me pushing the pedals.
Yep. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, so it's still pushing the pedals. So when it comes to, once again, that mindset of, say, for a leader who might not, they might not necessarily be building up, or they might not be cognizant of the fact of that they might not be working effectively with their team, etc. How do you get somebody who has that personality? How would you speak to me if I'm there saying, well, Shay's just not doing his job? Now, Shay might be doing an absolutely magnificent job and doing exactly what Shay was asked to do and doing it better than the expectation. But I want here, and he's only working to 120%. So it's, rather than 100, or rather than even you get 70% out of people on a daily basis, I think we're done pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how would you then, work with me? And obviously it's not going to be a one sentence type of thing, but how would you work with me over time to be able to understand, to be able to get the best?
I would ask to you,
Mm.
how do you know Shay's not working at 100%?
Yeah.
Or the level you want him to?
Yep. Well, that's just my feeling because I'm grumpy.
Yeah. Okay. That's your feeling.
Yeah.
That sounds like a sensation.
Yep.
Let's work with that.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because I did send Shay, and he might laugh at this, but I did send him an email last week saying, and it wasn't work that he had done. And I said, actually not happy with this. And this is what I was expecting this way. And it had nothing to do with Shay or what work he was doing, but he was working on the project. And I listed all these things I wasn't happy with. My last line was, no, it could be also the case because I'm tired and grumpy because I've been lifting heavy boxes to move house. But this is just and I spoke to you, I think it might have been off air, but it was about not dropping breadcrumbs anymore, actually stating it. So it wasn't actually having to go Shay. It was just a case of, here's where my expectations were. This is the outcome. I'm not happy with the outcome, but I could also just be tired and grumpy.
Yeah. Now, Shay, what's your thought on this?
We spoke about it this morning, didn't we? So it's you came from Adelaide, Shay came down from Sydney. So it's so he stays in our Sydney office. But it was interesting that historically I might have just had a go, and said that, but actually not actually, and especially if you're working, and I hadn't been, it was just working full time and lifting boxes. Yeah, so there's not much manual labour in these hands. No. So,
I've got consultant hands.
And I actually had four removalists as well. So it's
well, they do. There's a list of what is the most stressful events. Divorce is up there, moving house, changing jobs, having kids, I think are the top 4.
Yeah, so it's did the kids years ago and
done the divorce.
Yeah, that's right. So it's been a stressful month.
Yeah.
So it's even remember, how do I change electricity?
Oh.
Yeah, so how do I reconnect mail? How do I redirect mail? How do I all these things you just
well, back in our day, you had the phone number, so you'd call someone. This is what you did. And you had the mail turn up once a month with your bill in it. Yeah. So you were constantly connected to these things. Now it's just all direct debit. I wouldn't even know who my electricity is through. It just comes out of the credit card.
Well, last Thursday, I've booked a hard rubbish collection from my old house. And so I've got things out in the front lawn. I thought, the council hasn't sent me that sticker thing, the big orange sticker thing that you have to stick on the furniture. So I rang them. I said, how come I haven't got the sticker yet? And they said, oh, no, we sent it out on such a date, which was like 9 days earlier. So where'd you send it to? And I said, well, your home address. So guess what I did? I went and looked in the mailbox.
Yeah.
First time in 6 months, I think I looked at it. There was a few things in that mailbox. Yeah. So it's because I just haven't been used to checking the mailbox. Everything goes to the PO box.
Back in the early 2000s, every house had about 7 letters per day delivered.
Yeah.
Now Australia Post delivers every 3rd day.
Yeah.
Not because they're being slack, it's just their volume of letters is not there.
Yeah.
Parcels, another story. They'll drop them 2 or 3 times a day.
But I think also too, and one of the points you've got down here, when leaders are present physically but not mentally, me sending that email to Shay last week was, here are the things that I expected other things or different results from. Here's what we actually got. But I was cognizant to the fact that it could just be me going back to my 80, 100-hour weeks, just tired and grumpy. So, and Shay knew I wasn't having to go at him because he's on the project, but he was not doing that. I was an outsourced person was doing that. So from that perspective, whereas back in the 80 to 100-hour weeks, things which wasn't all that long ago, I was just constantly tired and grumpy.
Yeah. So when you're working 80 hours or 80 plus hours, even 60 hours a week.
Just had that life.
Yeah. And some people even 40 hours a week. When you're stressed, what happens is we get pushed up into fight or flight. In fight or flight, number of things happen. Cortisol gets dumped into your system. You're under stress. Lots of adrenaline in your system. When you're in fight or flight, you see everything as a threat.
Yeah.
That's just the way the system's designed. The system is working perfectly well. It's just not what we should have in the corporate world.
Yes.
And something goes wrong, you see it as a threat. So you lose your nana over it. and then you send off that email or you yell at someone. We need to understand when dealing with people, that person is not making an irrational move. It was Aristotle who said, man never acts irrationally, which we don't. Because if I go ape and yell at you, from my perspective, that's perfectly valid. So I'm not being irrational. A third party might think I am. Mm. So when we're up in fight or flight, we get lots of cortisol, lots of adrenaline in the system. That is highly addictive. And this is why people who are working 60, 80 hours a week don't find it very difficult to come out of that because it's addictive. It's not a nice addiction, but it's what I'm used to, so I'll keep chasing it. When you're in this fight or flight, what happens is your body is highly inflamed. Inflammation is a massive problem, medical problem across society. When you've been spending all year in fight or flight, highly inflamed, you take 2 weeks leave over Christmas, what happens? First week, you're sick.
Yeah, I was going to say catch a cold.
You catch a cold. Why? Because the body goes, I can finally stop.
Yeah.
And start
then sit on a plane full of germs and catch a cold.
Yeah. or you can sit at home and just catch a cold.
Yeah.
Because the body finally gets a chance to stop and relax.
Yeah.
What we need now, the way we treat being in fight or flight is, we better put, you can't handle the pressure, get out of the kitchen. Yeah. We put a cage around, like discipline, around the outcome, which is the actions. But that doesn't treat the problem, because what it says is you want to be a high-level financial advisor with more high net worth individuals. Your body is showing the stress markers that you can't handle it. Therefore, you got to find another career, mate. Go be a florist, and you go, I wasn't one of the chosen ones.
Yes.
How awful's that? Mm. So we just live with that person. They're a grumpy bum. Well, that's just the way that person is. He is, she is. That's terrible for the people who've got to work with them.
Yes. The
reason this happens is, when were you taught how your mind-body instrument operates? You never were. No. But this is what you drive from day one landing on the planet.
Yeah.
You've never been taught how to do it.
Yeah.
So that's what I do. I show people how to, this is happening. We can fix it by doing, or address that issue by doing this. And what happens is we find people come out of high beta brainwaves, which is the fight or flight, back down to low or medium beta brainwaves, which gets rid of all of their cortisol, etc. One of my clients, we worked together over a couple of weeks. At the end of the engagement, he said he'd been and seen his doctor, and his doctor's gone, mate, you finally got your cortisol under control. You're going to live longer because of that. And this guy's working on literally $2 billion jobs as the chief engineer. The pressure he's under, he was just continually flying off the handle and yelling at everybody because they were, in his mind, idiots. They weren't doing it right. Yeah. But because he was continually in fight or flight, that's what he saw. I showed him how to come out of it by understanding how his mind-body instrument operates. And he told me at the end of the project, someone came up and just said something that was stupid, and he just looked at it and went, okay, not a problem. Didn't react. Yeah. And he was telling me the other day that when he doesn't apply the mindset mastery methodology in the morning, his wife knows it. She can look at him and go, you haven't done your mindset mastery, go off and do it.
That's a good sign.
That's how powerful it is for him. And this guy,
when the people with you every day are noticing the positive changes in your life, they want those to continue. Yeah. And if they encourage them, that's even better.
Yeah, and this guy's no pussycat. He grew up in Manchester. He's about our age. Deadlifts 220 kilos before breakfast.
It's like a show.
Yeah. Works in construction, drives his Harley into the office. And now I've got him using this meditation methodology.
Yeah.
And he's less stress. He's backing off from the booze. He's never had more fun in his life.
That's what life is about, even for people who do have alpha personalities or who've grown up tough.
So what's personality? Personality, all it is your addiction to your own bodily chemicals.
Correct.
So if you come across something, say you're involved in a near miss on the way to work, you're perfectly fine. You're going to find these adrenaline and cortisol coursing through your system. You're going to act a certain way. So you're in a bit of a mood. You get into the office, you're in a bit of an edgy sort of mood. Now, can you imagine carrying that across the whole week? Like, you're going to say, he's got a bit of a temperament, hasn't he? And if we keep that going for long enough, it sort of becomes your personality. That's all personality is. the way you are responding to the chemicals inside your body. How do you know you're responding in a certain way to chemicals? There's a sensation.
Yes. There's a vibration,
There's a
as
vibration.
you spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's Darren, thank you so much for coming in.
It's been wonderful to chat.
No, it has been, and we should go out and chat over food now.
That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, but I'm just going to ask. You've mentioned a lot of books, so I'm just going to ask a couple rapid fire questions,
Sure.
if that's okay. One of your favourite all-time books you've read?
All-time books?
Yeah, fiction or not, it doesn't matter, non-fiction. And a book that you've read recently that you thought was really good, or something you remember in a book. You've used a couple of quotes, but something that you've remembered in a book that's, like, for example, for me, it was The Power of Now and talking about time. And that time is something that we've made up. You ask a monkey what time it is, and they say, well, it's now.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm going to Oxford to study.
Yes, okay. Wonderful.
Time, understanding time. So book that I'm currently reading is Brian Greene, Fabric of the Cosmos, which is talking about quantum physics and time. The book I mentioned earlier, Michael Singer, The Surrender Experiment.
Yes.
Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins will blow your mind when it comes to understanding people and managing people. It's his fiction. Oh, sorry, non-fiction. I've written 7 books. I can never work out the difference between.
We will put links to your books.
I've written 7 books, so I can never remember fiction or non-fiction.
Yeah.
It's the non-fiction version of his PhD thesis on understanding energy and the way people vibrate.
Yeah.
And if people sit there and go, "Oh, he's getting all woo-woo into this people vibrating energy," Einstein said it best: energy equals mass by the speed of light squared. You have mass. The speed of light is there. So if there's mass and the speed of light is constant, there is energy. Every single one of us vibrates. We all know we're protons, electrons, neutrons. I could sit down and talk books all afternoon.
Let's do it over some sushi.
Sounds like a great plan.
Darren, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thanks for the opportunity. Great fun.
Pleasure.
The Kofkin Bond podcast is a product from Kofkin Bond Company, which we are an authorized representative of Count Financial. All information in this podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional, finance, legal, or tax advice. The hosts of the Kofkin Bond podcast are not aware of your personal financial circumstances. Before making any financial decision, you should read the product disclosure statement and, if necessary, consult a licensed financial professional. Do not take financial advice from the podcast. For more information, head to the disclaimer page on the Kofkin Bond website, or you can find resources on the ASIC website and find a registered financial professional near you. In the spirit of reconciliation, Kofkin Bond Co. and the hosts of the Kofkin Bond podcast acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today.